2024. What a wild year this was. You know, 40% of the world's elections happened this year. I didn't know that. I had to Google it for this video because I wanted the cool fact about 2024. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about the UFC and what happened. So we're going to go through every single month, talk about the events that happened that month, and kind of like the big things that happened throughout the year on like chronological order. So, UFC 300 is going to be in there, but it's going to be when UFC happened, which was in April. 300 happened in April. Starting off with January, we started the year off with the first event, which was a UFC fight night. Ankalaev versus Walker 2. Now, obviously, in the first fight, no contest. Should have been a DQ, but Saudi Arabia, not was it Saudi Arabia? Was it? No, it was Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi have different rules to everywhere else, like the commission. So they don't do disqualifications in Abu Dhabi, but they do them in the US. So if that fight took place in the US, the first fight, it would have been a DQ and Walker would have won. But because it took place in Abu Dhabi, they don't have disqualifications for illegal knees. So it was a Ankalaev. No, it wasn't Ankalaev when it was no contest. However, this second fight was an Ankalaev win. Johnny Walker has no chin at all. Decent way to start off the year with a pretty nasty knockout. He always gets knocked out in the most nasty ways possible. He also has no chin. Till I mentioned he doesn't have a chin. But great way to start the year. First pay-per-view of the year was Sean Strickland versus Dricus du Plessis. I think we also started the year off with Sean Strickland crying on Theo Von. I'm pretty sure that was this year. It might have been end of 2023. But it definitely did build up this fight a little bit of Sean Strickland just going, nah, that's sleeping. I'm not going to do a baby impression. Let's just move on. It did kind of start the year pretty well by him weeping and just crying his eyes out. But it kind of broke his persona a little bit. And he lost aura, as the 12-year-olds would say. So this was a pretty good fight, very close fight. Some people say Strickland won. A lot of people saying Strickland won. Dricus du Plessis won. If you score the fight, I score Strickland round 1 and 5, and there was a close round 3, but I got Dricus round 2, 3, and 4. 3-2, very close fight. Could have gone either way. That's why it was a split decision. So very good way to start the year. Hopefully we start a year this year, not this year, 2025 better or like the same way. Obviously we've got Dern Ribas 2 as the main event, which is a little bit poo. That's not better than Walker and Live. But UFC 330, no, 311, bro, I cannot count, is stacked, and hopefully we do get some good fights in that card. So yeah, February, we got 4 events in February. We're going to talk about one because we don't care about the other 3. Topuria versus Volkanovski. This is when Topuria won the belt, and this could be like the beginning of history, because this guy could be double champ, Hopefully, he's talking about moving up to lightweight. Hopefully, he does get another title defense at featherweight before he moves up, because otherwise, well, we're all going to be sat here looking at him trying to speed run things, bro. This man thinks he's some sort of like gamer. He's speed running a game. Like, you need to take your time here. You can't just come in, get the title, and then move up after 2 defenses. You need 3 or 4. And the way you do that quickly is get active, Like, people are he's looking at probably Pereira, and he's taking like, trying to copy back what Pereira did. But the issue is, difference between him and Pereira is Alex Pereira fights about 3 times a year. He fights once or twice, like he got the title shot after 6 fights in the UFC. I don't know. So I don't think he was kind of. He's trying to speedrun this by doing as little as possible. He needs to do. If he does more, then he'll get where he wants to faster. But in terms of this fight card, took place in Australia, I think. Did it? Honda City? That's Australia. No, it's United States. What am I talking about? Bro, why is this? Oh, man, I'm such a... Jeez. Anyway, decent fight card. Topuria knocks out Volkanovski. That's clearly an upset. But Volkanovski was coming off like a knockout 3 months before against Islam because he's a moron. And bro, this is just... this depressing talk about this fight, Yeah. Poor guy got knocked out. He's probably going to get knocked out when these two have a rematch as well. Hopefully they'll have a rematch. That's probably why Ilia Topuria wants to move up to lightweight, because he doesn't want to rematch Volkanovski, the guy he literally just knocked out, But the UFC will probably try and make it happen, despite the fact nobody's asking for it at all, and Volkanovski's going to get slept again. March, we had 5 fights in March. We care about the top 2 because if you look at, but I ain't talking about Tybora versus Tuivasa. We're not at Ribas versus Namajunas. Blanchfield versus whatever the hell her name is. Like, we're not talking about this, you know? Top two. Shamil Gaziev versus Rosenstruik. This is, he said the reason why Rosenstruik lost this, not Rosenstruik, Gaziev lost this fight was because it said retirement because he can't see. I don't think it's because he couldn't see. I think it's because he couldn't physically throw a punch because he was that gassed. My man gassed out within the first round. He was heaving. He was going, inside the first round, brother. First round. Insane. And then he somehow managed to go 4 rounds to the point where he couldn't even throw strikes and he was going head movement, but like his head movement was that slow, he was just getting hit. Like Rosenstruik would throw a jab and then Gaziev would try and do some sort of head movement and it would just move straight into the strike. He's a complete this was the fraud checking of Shamil Gaziev, right? He can like look at the like even Rosenstruik's a big boy, right? Don't get twisted that Gaziev's just out of shape for the division. But he probably is actually, to be fair. But Rosenstruik, like, if you look at the difference in terms of like look at the size of their arms in the bottom right hand picture. Rosenstruik's just he's got more muscle than Gaziev, and they weigh roughly about the same. Like Gaziev's just he's not muscular, he's just fat, and it's not very good to even as a heavyweight. You can't be a top 5 heavyweight. You can be probably top 10, and you can easily be ranked as a heavyweight if you're just a fat guy. But like if you look at Derek Lewis and you look at Rosenstruik, they look very similar, obviously. But like they are kind of built, as in they have more size to them in terms of muscle, whereas the guys under that are kind of just like they're kind of just skinny fat but bigger. You know, that's the best way I can describe it. But Gaziev turned into Gassiev this fight and gassed out within 5 minutes and then somehow went the entire fight, which we're going to talk about later with a guy called Michael Bahera, who also has an exchange of cardio as well. O'Malley versus Vera 2, UFC 299. This also happened in March. This was an overstacked card. Now, obviously, this is one event before UFC 300. They wanted to prove that O'Malley was a superstar, or they wanted some proof to see that he was a superstar, which they decided to do this by effectively just manipulating the numbers. So you know how studies get paid by like like researchers study things and then they come out with bits of data that support a certain point. Well, the way they do that is they don't just like make up data. They have to manipulate data by changing certain variables and then not mentioning that they changed the variables. So what they will do is the first Aljamain Sterling versus O'Malley fight, it didn't really get that many pay-per-view views. However, the second one got a lot of pay-per-view views because of the quality of the fight. So I'm going to read out some of the names that were on this card. Some of the names that were on the main card, the prelims, even the early prelims. There's still good prospects in the early prelims. And then you tell me why you thought this fight got a lot more pay-per-views than the second fight. Because so O'Malley versus Vera, obviously main event. Dustin Poirier versus Benoit Saint Denis. That's co-main event. Very, very strong main and co-main event. Kevin Holland, Michael Venom Page. That's the feature fight. Then we got Gilbert Burns, Jack Della Maddalena. We got Piotr Jan Song Yadong. That's the first 5 fights, right? Very, very good. Prelims, Curtis Blade, Gelson Almeida. That's a main event at UFC 309. You get what I mean? Not main event, but that's a main card fight. Mateus Gamrot, Rafael Dos Anjos. Matey Barber's on the card. Pedro Munoz, Kyler Phillips, they're on the card. Michael Bahera, the guy we just mentioned before, right? He's the guy who does backflips to try and knock people out. He's on the prelims. An undefeated guy who knocks everyone out within the first round, Despain, is on the early prelims, right? They are the good fights. That's what sold this card, right? It was not O'Malley that sold this card. They want O'Malley to be a superstar, so they manipulate the pay-per-view views by changing variables lower down in the card, so that the card is so stacked that you have to watch it, and then as a turn makes O'Malley look better than he actually is, which is what they did with UFC 299. Now, obviously, we're going to talk about the one they only UFC 300 next. They were similarly like stacked. You get what I mean? They weren't. It's not like UFC 300 was levels above 299. 299 was amazing. right? 300 was very good as well, but we expected this from 300. They started hyping up 300 like it's going to be a never seen before card. UFC 200 was similar levels. You get what I mean? Like, UFC 300 was good. We opened it up with oh man, I forgot. Figgy versus Garbrandt, which is a former champ matchup. But realistically, after that, we had some decent fights on the card, all ranked matchups, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much every single fight on the card was a ranked matchup, which is, we haven't seen that before. But it's a good card. But they promised an amazing card. They promised the best card with a unfathomable card with a main event we wouldn't even see coming. We got Pereira versus Hill. Everyone saw that coming because it was going to happen anyway. Didn't see it for this card though, but you know. But the bonuses for this card were 300k. Now this made for some incredible moments. Like iconic, Max Holloway pointing to the ground probably would have happened anyway. But him trying to get a knockout may not have happened. He might have just pointed to the ground and said, "Oh, scrap, scrap, scrap." Like, he wouldn't have just started rocking him. We got a Yuri versus Rakic scrap, fight of the night. We wouldn't have got this on 299 because it probably would have just been a kickboxing match from long range like Rakic likes to do. We then got Pereira knocking out Hill with a getting groin kicked and then just boom, left hand right down, right up. I think it was an uppercut, wasn't it? Left uppercut right onto the chin after being kicked in the balls and saying no time, let's go. Like those moments probably wouldn't have happened if the bonuses weren't 300,000. You get what I mean? So that's what really made this fight, and it's very different to when we had the Sphere card later. We'll get onto that a little bit later, but the fights on that card weren't as good because the bonuses. I think Dana it was after 304 where Dana just said, "Nah, we ain't upping the bonuses publicly ever again. We ain't saying 400, 500. We're not doing this ever again." And that really changed the fights of the Sphere card because they were kind of mid on the we had some good fights in there, but they were kind of mid. But we'll get more on that later. On top of that, obviously the card was stacked as well. I mean, there's a lot of former champions on the card. Figueiredo, Garbrandt opening us up. Who else do we have on the card that was former champ? We had Sterling, former champ in the prelims. Yuri, former champ in the prelims. I don't know how Bo Nick or Cody Brundage weaseled its way onto the main event. I don't know. Charles Oliveira's former champ. Max Holloway's former champ. Justin Gaethje's former interim champ. Zhang Wei Li's champion. Alex Pereira's champion. And then Jamal Hill, former champ. So very stacked in terms of the quality of fighters on the card. Overall, probably if you ignore the fact that it was UFC 300, best card of the year, but if you add in the fact it was 300, I don't think it's kind of like it takes some points off it because you expect it to be good. The expectation is there. I don't know. Maybe I'm just waffling. Moving into May, this is all messed up. I don't know what's going on here. Right. Well, there's only really one fight we care about in May, and that is UFC 301. Pantoja versus Usyk. All right, card. Aldo's the co-main event against Martinez. Pantoja Usyk. What can we really say? Some people say Usyk won this fight. I don't think he did. I think Pantoja won reasonably. But the problem is, this is where the judging really starts to get questioned. Like, we talk about the judging in certain fights, whatever. And there was a lot of judging errors earlier on this year. But, when there's random 4-1 scorecards to the champion or to the guy they want to win, it really does question, are these fights fixed? Because if there's it's a close fight, but then there's randomly you would hear a split decision. It will be 3-1 Pantoja, 3-1 Usyk, and then 4-1 Pantoja. They're just randomly pre-written scorecards that are just they're told. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if they're in their pocket, but I'm not going to question that up because I also don't want to get sued by anyone. Maybe I won't get sued for saying that, but it's kind of just some food for thought. Like, why is there every single robbery you see one scorecard that's just insane? Like every robbery, there's just one guy who said 30-27, regardless of whether the fight was at all close at all. But we'll move. June. What? No, I'm gonna press the wrong button. Crikey. Right, June. Half of these fights paired up on the May one. I don't know why. We're gonna be talking about the two pay-per-views, as well as Whitaker Askarov, whatever his name is. Kanania Amavov was all right. I mean, I think Amavov's kind of mid. I don't think he's that good. Like, I know he's fighting Adesanya, but I don't think he's not tier like top tier, top tier. You get what I mean? I don't know. Maybe I'm just a little bit like biased against him, but I don't think he's that good in terms of his striking doesn't look good. His offensive wrestling's all right, but he's mainly a kickboxer. So I don't know. And then we don't give a darn about Perez Tyra. So Makhachev Poirier, first fight of the month. Well, obviously shine bright like a diamond played. So shine bright like a diamond. But Makhachev gassed him, and he said, "Poirier, he said in the pre-fight press conference, you're either gonna tap or you're gonna go to sleep." Poirier tapped and still went to sleep, so he did both. He doubled down. I think. I mean, Makhachev showed in this fight that he can hang with the good strikers in this division. He didn't outstrike Poirier, but like some rounds they were close on the feet, and he's showing that I can outstrike you. I'm not outstrike you, but like I can hang with you, mate. You're not that good at I'm better than you on the ground, but on the stand up where you should have the advantage, I'm the same level as you. And that's really like he's gonna be a dominant fighter on the ground, but when he can now hang with people on the feet, a different game, you know? Like Khabib could get people on the ground and it's game over for a lot of them. But on the feet, he's gonna lose a round to Conor McGregor. He's gonna lose a round to Justin Gaethje, and he probably lost a few to Tiburoy as well. But like Makachev can hang with the guys on the feet, get it to the ground if he needs to, and then batter them on the ground. It's pretty insane when you think about it. I think he beats Sarukian. I think it's going to be a close one, but I think he definitely does beat Sarukian. Whitaker versus Askrolov. This was meant to be Chimaev, and the only reason why I've even put this in here is to take some shots at Chimaev because I've been a little bit too nice on him recently. So we're going to go back to dissing him completely. And obviously, taking away the fact that Askrolov looks almost identical to. He looks like Chimaev if Chimaev was like. What? He looks similar to Chimaev, maybe if he had like shorter hair a little bit. And then if. What? I don't even know what I'm trying to get at here. It doesn't really matter. Whitaker absolutely demolished Askrolov, but Chimaev didn't even make it to the weigh-ins. It's not like the fact that, maybe he missed weight today or he missed weight last time. He didn't even make it to the weigh-ins. He just, it's not like he failed to make weight. He didn't even make it there. He had to pull out before because he got, I don't even know what it was. I think it was an autoimmune disease, and then he retired and then came out of retirement. Come on. This fight probably would have gone Chimaev's way still, but, we gotta delay it until October because why not? International Fight Week, UFC 303, Pereira versus Prohaska 2. This was meant to be Chandler versus McGregor. We were supposed to have Hill Roundtree in this card. Half the fights pulled up. We were meant to have Brian Ortega versus Diego Lopez in this card. Everybody pulled out, and now the UFC are changing how they run these things and just overstacking them to the point where, like, if someone pulls out, it doesn't really matter, Obviously, Pereira sent Prohaska and pretty much just gave him truckloads of CTE, knocked him out in the first round, and then because it was at the end of the round, Prohaska got back up, went to his corner, prepared himself for the second round, and then came walking in and then got a headshot again. With this time with a high kick rather than left hook, but like Prohaska he needs a lot of time off after that. Like he started training the day after, punching his trees. Take some time off, brother. He's fighting in February, which is a decent amount of time off. To be fair, June to February is a normal. Is like that's better than fighting once every 3 months, getting knocked out twice by Pereira both times. Moving on to the next month, which is July. This was probably the worst month of the year for the UFC. Like we're currently in December, and this month we had 2 fights, and January we had 2 fights, much better than July. We had 3 fights. No one cares about Namajunas versus Cortez. Lemos versus Jabir. Well, I don't even know how to say a name. Don't care. Edwards Mohammed took place in Britain at 3 a.m. local time. 3 a.m. local time. It took place on American time while in Britain. Half the fighters on the card didn't even sleep for what? 20 hours? I think Tom Aspinall didn't sleep for 21 hours before his fight with Curtis Blades. Like, they even look at the poster for this fight. I like to collect a few posters and stick on my wall. I refuse to purchase this poster because it looked arse. Look at it. Why is Bilal Muhammad and Leon Edwards going into each other? Why is Tom Aspinall and Curtis Blade going into each other? Why is there a half and half? Like, some of the new posters are good. Like, look at the 308 poster. Look at the 310 poster is pretty mid, but look at the 308 poster and compare it to this absolute shit. Like, come on. Edwards Muhammad, though, it was a pretty boring fight. I mean, it wasn't a boring. It's probably the most entertaining Bilal Muhammad fight I've ever seen, which, says a lot. But it wasn't it wasn't a barn burner, as Dana White would say. I mean, Tom Aspinall obviously probably, well, I wouldn't say the best fight in the card. Knocked him out in a minute. It wasn't even that good of a fight. What else do we have? Paddy Pimblett almost killed Bobby Green for the second time and nearly broke his arm. What can you do? That man's dangerous on the ground. Bobby Green's got too much CTE to even continue. Retire, Bobby, please. Well, or King, whatever floats your boat, mate. What else do we have? Makayev got cut from the UFC this fight, because he tried pulling down Manel Cap's shorts. Not even tried. He pulled down his shorts and exposed his ass to the entire crowd of 50 people, because everyone decided to take this one as their shit break because no one really wants to watch Makayev fight. But Makayev got cut because, bro, in the lead up to this fight, he jumped Manel. He went to Manel Cap's hotel, went up to him saying, "Oh yeah, can we have a picture?" And then jumped in with his entire team. Well, Manel Cap's there with his mate. Insane scenes from Makayev. But now he's been cut from the UFC and is basically willing to do anything to get back in. Like, my man's saying, "Please, brother, I will fight for free. I'll fight for free, brother." Like, we don't want you, Makayev. Go away, Moving on. August. This redeemed the month of... What were we on? July. Yeah, this redeemed the month of July with Duplessis Adesanya, which Duplessis won while also showing that he has the technical ability of what? Like a chimpanzee, a gorilla. That's pretty much what he is, mate. He's an albino gorilla. He goes, whoa, whoom, and just throws the most untechnical shots you've ever seen, and it somehow still works. If you look at the final sequence where Adesanya points to his foot and says, "Yeah, you didn't get me. Haha, trust." And then Duplessis just goes, "Okay," runs at him, throwing these big haymakers, connects with him, takes him to the ground, and then Izzy just lets him have his back. Duplessis fights, they're very fun to watch, but they're just the least technical thing you've ever seen in your entire life. We also had the fight that made Lucas Tracy retire, which is Tybura Spivak 2. And then he came out of retirement. Bro, Tybura, look at Tybura's hair, man. How are you going to let that man beat you? He doesn't even beat you in a good way. He just takes you down and sits on you. And then fraud checks people. You better not fraud check Mick Parkin, otherwise it's all hands in the heavyweight division. Tybura's he's not leaving the stadium, if you know what I mean. Spivak, I mean, realistically, this is a main card fight event in big 2024. We're moving into 2025. We better not see any more Apex events of Tybura Spivak 3, otherwise it's hands. Dana, calm it down, mate. We also got Sanhagen Nurmagomedov, Umar Nurmagomedov. I mean, it was a decent performance by Umar. He won all 5 rounds. But come on, that's not a title. This is his first ranked win, not a performance that you can hang your hat on and say that's title fight guaranteed. All I'm saying. I'm still salty about that. How he's getting a title fight in the beginning of 2025. We'll see how it goes. If all's right in the world, he'll get fraud checked by Merab, and then we can all rule him out. But he'll probably beat Merab, and then we can all, say he doesn't deserve it. And he's probably going to get a double champ straight away. Might as well speedrun everything. Get him to triple champ without having to fight a single contender. How about that? Anyway, September, we got the Sphere card. We also got... What else do we got? Did I even talk? Yeah, I did. Okay, we got the Sphere card. We also got Benoit Saint Denis versus Moicano, and we also got Burns Brady. I'm talking about the top two again. Burns Brady is kind of like, it's Bilal Muhammad's kids having a go. O'Malley versus Darishvili. I watched this back. Initially, I thought, I'm not going to lie to you. I stayed up to watch this fight. I fell asleep at the co-main event, and I didn't wake up until the main event. So until the main event was over, so I whipped on my laptop and I went, okay, who's winning? Who won? Right? I turn on my thing, whatever, my live broadcast, and I see Marab going, hey brother, holding his belt in the air. I go, oh bugger, he won. So I think, okay, whatever. I'll watch the replay. Firstly, pretty boring fight compared to some of the fights in this card. Some of the fights in this card, Zellhuber versus, I think it was Ribovic, was it? Let me just quickly check who it was. Oh no, sugar, that's Oliveira too. Some of the fights in this card were pretty good ones. Well, before I get the other one up, we'll talk about Diego Lopez. He finally had his fight with with Brian Ortega. Good fight. There were some decent fights on the prelims as well. Raul Rosas Jr.'s opened us up with a boring decision and then said, oh, hey Dana, 50k Dana. Stupid. Van versus Shirez was, it was a good fight to be fair, actually, now I think about it. Arguably also still fight of the night. Obviously, there was two for fight of the night, two, fights that could be. That was Joshua Van, Shirez, and then who else we got? Rodriguez Osborne was another one. That was very good. They're all flyweight matchups. There was no one on this card above 155, I don't think. Was there anyone on this card even 155? Yeah, there was one fight on the card that was above 150. That was 155, and that's it. Jeez. Oh, actually, there was two. And then, so fight night was Zellhuber, Ribovic. That was a good fight, don't get me wrong. Ribovic won, which I think I agree with. I had Zellhuber round 1, Ribovic round 2 and 3, I think. I don't remember that. It's a little bit hazy. Yeah, I fell asleep before the main and co-main event. Realistically, I didn't really care. I rewatched the main event, and then I rewatched the co-main event, and it's kind of like, who? These were boring fights. Let's be real here. But Merab O'Malley wasn't that boring, but it's kind of like, okay, O'Malley's kind of just, he's not really doing anything. Like, on the feet, he wasn't really doing enough. He did arguably win round 1, 3, and 5. I gave him round 3 and 5, but he didn't win round 1, in my opinion. But he nearly did. Like, if he throws a big strike in round 1, he wins the round, and he wins the fight, and people are going to call it a robbery. $20 million went into the production. They made 21 million. So they got the highest gate in the UFC history, but their profit was like 1 mil, which is terrible for an event. But they did it, the first guys to ever be in the Sphere. If they did this on, like, as an American card and not as a UFC Noche, like, in Mexican Independence Day, no one would complain. They should have done the Mexican card in Mexico, believe it or not, and then just had any normal card in here, because otherwise they have to stick, because if they're doing a Mexican card, they have to put Mexicans on the card, believe it or not. So they had a bunch of, to be fair, all the Mexicans did lose. So Raul Rosas Jr. won. After that, they went on a 4-fight losing streak and got beaten in the co-main event and on the second fight on the main card, which means they went 2 and 6 at UFC Noche. So realistically, if you run this fight in Mexico, great card, bunch of, still get the pay-per-views, whatever. Then you run the Sphere card in you probably wouldn't run 307 at the Sphere. You run 306 at the Sphere, not 306, 305 at the Sphere. Brilliant, fine, whatever. Maybe you up some of the quality on the card, but you run different fights in this card. You don't do UFC Noche. Probably like 308 on the Sphere, perfect card. Anyway, we'll move on. We got BSD versus Moicano in France. I have to talk about this. We got some of the best post-fight press conferences ever. Now, obviously, Moicano absolutely beats the brakes off Saint Denis. 10-7 round, in my opinion. Like, fight shouldn't have been stopped in the first round, but definitely doctor stoppage, in my opinion. Needed to happen, but Brian Battle stole the show. He walked out to Kanye West Jay-Z song Brothers in Paris. I'll leave it like that. And while in Paris, came out, beat the brakes off the French guy, flipped off the crowd, and then started saying, "Y'all didn't think the Butcher was gonna lose in a fist fight to a French dude." Insane there from Brian Battle. That makes someone a star. You get what I mean? They go into France, they flip off the crowd. Like people, like the French isn't really after what the French Commission did to Moicano and Brendan Allen, you know, and made them stay behind like 3 hours to try and get piss samples off them. Like people don't really want to go back to France. And Brian Battle, I'm pretty sure he's been fined and banned from the French Commission. He can't fight in France anymore. But if it was going to happen anywhere, it was going to be France. If this was going to happen anywhere, it was going to have to be France. You get what I mean? This wouldn't happen in the US. All I'm saying. October. Well, we got 2 pay-per-views in October again, as well as two fight events, 2 fight nights. Obviously, we don't give a one about Royval versus Tyra, but Hernandez versus Pereira. Pereira had a exchange of cardio, moving up a weight class, no cardio. I don't know what was wrong with him. If he had staff, if he had, and I did he even train for this fight? Generally, one exchange of cardio, and then Hernandez can't get a finish, so we just beat the brakes off him for 4 rounds. You know, it was pretty much like beating a child. I'm not gonna. No, it's like beating a. It's like trying to 1v1 someone who doesn't know what they're doing. It's kind of like, come on. Or you're 1v1ing a guy in UFC 5 and he's got 1 stamina. Of course, you're gonna win every single exchange, you know. Para Roundtree. It was a pretty mid card. I ain't gonna lie. There weren't any fights on here that really made me go, "Wow, what? They're running." Hang on, let me look at this card and see what fights there are on here that I actually really care about. Like, I don't look at 307 and go, "Wow, we get Austin Holberg versus Alexander Hernandez on the prelim." What? You know, I look at the main card, we go, oh, okay, right, we've got Roman Delancey versus Kevin Holland. Don't really care. We go Vera versus Harrison. Don't really care. We get Aldo Batista. I do care about that one. But Batista did just hold him against the fence the entire time. Pennington versus Pena. Don't care. Really, honestly, probably the worst fight on the main card. Do not care. Alex Pereira versus Roundtree. I care about that one. Best fight of the night. He got fight of the night, guys. If the main event never gets fight of the night, pretty much ever. That's how bad this card was. However, it was a brilliant fight. Roundtree, first 2 rounds, beating the brakes off Pereira. Well, I would say beat the brakes off him, but kind of like he's dominating him in a little bit. Especially with his 1-2 jab exploding forward. Weakness in Pereira's game in that area. And then round 3, Ultra Instinct. Boom, back. Boom, head movement. And that's a problem with Pereira. He kind of just goes, right, well, I want to start beating this guy. Let me go all head movement, no defense. And he just starts whipping out the way, weaving, dodging all over the place, mate. And you bet it I'm moving like that right now as I'm talking. But obviously I can't show Roundtree's face. That's why it's in grayscale, because otherwise this video will probably get age restricted. Topuria Holloway also happened this month. I feel that's kind of a big jump from this one to this one, but you know, we're going to do it anyway. 308, a fantastic card. Fights in the card weren't that great. It was not like one that stands out like, oh, okay, you know, it's not one that stands out that we go, what? These were fantastic fights, like some of the ones coming later. But it was a decent fight card. Topuria knocking out Max Holloway. Chimaev knocking. Main event was very good, by the way. Like, there's usually the fights in the prelims are much better than the fights in the main event. Usually that tends to be what happens. Like, but on this one, I would say the main event was probably better than the prelims. Now, where is 308? Here it is. So on the prelims, we had like Obo and Asan versus Rafael. I don't even know how to say his name. He didn't even Rafael. We'll just call him Rafael, whatever. He didn't throw a single punch. He literally backs up in the corner with his guard up, and he's getting teed off by Hassan. 51 seconds. Rafael dos Anjos, he gets knocked down, but he also tears an ACL. Rebecca Oroblai, fight of the night, arguably fight of the year as well. What else do we have? Abbas Magomedov, Bruno Ferreira wasn't that. It wasn't really that good. In Chedjanu versus Chris Barnett. Chris Barnett hurt his ankle jumping up and down. Victor Hugo versus Fabian Basharat. I mean, it was an alright fight. It wasn't really that good. I believe he came in like 20 pounds overweight as well. Ismail versus Bruno Silva. I mean, and then the beginning fight, which was arguably a robbery. And then we look at the main card, and it's stacked. Lerone Murphy, Dan Ige, good fight. Sharon Magomedov, double spinning back fist against Peterson. Ankalaev versus Rakic, bit of a stinker. And then we got Chimaev, breaking Robert Whittaker's jaw. Ilya Topuria versus Max Holloway, knocking him out. Like, the first guy to ever knock out Max Holloway. Main card was fantastic. Prelims were terrible. Not terrible, but they weren't great, like they normally are. So, there wasn't that good of a fight card in terms of like the year, how it tosses up, but like definitely better than 306 and 307, 100%. November, we got quite a few fights in here. Moreno Albazi, I'm not going to talk about in that much of a depth. I mean, Moreno kind of just fraud checked the guy. 5 rounds to none. Magny Prates knocks him out. I mean, Magny can be chinnable now. It's Neil Magny as a gatekeeper, whatever. But we will talk about UFC 309. I cannot get any pictures from this fight, so the best we're getting is John Jones next to Stipe. I can't get any pictures. They reused the old gloves. They brought back the old gloves because John Jones in like the new gloves, right? They pretty much tear down their entire company for Jones. It doesn't matter if he says, "Oh yeah, we're changing our names to the Ultimate Docking Championships." Tomorrow they're changing it to the UDC. They're changing everything. This fight, I mean, it was also this card was probably the worst of the year. I won't lie to you. It wasn't. It's not like it's mid, but it was terrible. Some of the fights in this card. I'll run through some of them. Prelims. Orban Elliott, Welsh guy. I mean, he won. Anyone else on this card that we really? Tybora fraud checked another guy. What do you know? Above Jim Miller still got it. Guillotine Damian Jackson, fair enough. Martinez versus McGee. Huffy Long Top was probably the best fight in the card. Chandler versus Oliveira got fight of the night, but it was pretty boring, I ain't gonna lie. Jones versus Miocic got performance of the night, where Jones almost got outboxed by 42-year-old Miocic in that third round. Not third round, in the second round, and it was almost headed for round 4. Jones should have probably finished it earlier, in my opinion. Should have finished it in round 1 while he had him on the ground, but Stipe is pretty tough. He's a firefighter. Tops to Stipe for getting that back, Yan versus Figueiredo. Figueiredo got dominated. This was another good fight night. A lot of knockouts on this card. Bro, the last 2 fight nights of this year was absolutely insane. A lot of knockouts on this card, including like Feng got sent to hospital. What else do we have? Oh, he's spinning back kick from what's his name? Muslim Salakhov. Was it? Yes, no, spinning head kick. Well, not back kick. Spinning wheel kick from Muslim Salakhov. Arguably one of the knockouts of the year. Incredible. Amazing fight card. December. Pantoja Asakura, and then we got Covington Buckley. We talk about UFC 310 first. Pretty mid fight card. I mean, Anthony Smith did his Anthony Smith thing, obviously. I'm only saying that because he's on the screen. Pantoja sleeps. Well, he doesn't sleep, but he submits Asakura. I mean, Shavkat versus Gary was boring. The late Nan got fraud check. Well, not fraud check, but it was an interesting fight. We had Cron Gracie getting slammed on his head after making a mockery of the sport for the entire Like, I'm gonna try not go on a rant by Con Gracie here because that brother made a mockery of this sport completely. Oh, I'm just gonna keep pulling guard, losing all 3 rounds until he gets knocked out, and we all cheer. Bro, even Joe Rogan glazes the BJJ guys. He comes along and says, "You don't want to be in his guard. People forget, man." That was the worst accent ever. I'm gonna redo that. We're redoing the Joe Rogan accent. People forget, man. He's in danger on the ground, man. That's still terrible. It doesn't really matter. You get the point. He glazes the BJJ fighters to the nth degree, and then, but he wasn't saying this. He was like, "Oh, not again, man, not again." No, 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 no. Like, we didn't want to see Con Gracie keep pulling guard and ruining the sport of MMA before our eyes, and then got slammed in his head. Anyway, this was a pretty mid card. The fights on the card weren't that great. I mean, to be fair, I actually saw a comment. It was Evloev Sterling was arguably one of the best fights in the card, and we all said that was going to be boring. It was probably one of the best grappling exchanges we've seen in a while, and one of the best fights in the card. So, what can we say? You know? Moving on. Final fight of the year, Covington versus Buckley. This fight night, I'm going to talk about this fight night for the remaining, 19 minutes to get this video up to an hour. I'm joking. But this fight night, arguably one of the best in the best I've ever seen. Now, I did miss the first few fights. Luckily, they were the worst. Sean Woodson, knockout versus Pads Pali. I can't say people's names. Yoel Alvarez. I can't say people's names, man. I've been recording for too long. I've been speaking for too long. Right, I'm going to quickly. We're going to slow down the pace a little bit because otherwise we're going to start butchering every other word. Yoel Alvarez knockout was absolutely insane. My man kneed him, knocked him out, caught him in a guillotine so he wouldn't fall to the ground, and then started hitting him like he's a bully. You know when someone puts you in a headlock and gives you like a nuggie on the head, like, ah! Bro, that's what he effectively did to Close. Stupid. Michael Johnson, I don't know, how did he get performance tonight? I know he knocked him out, but like, come on. Deadly knockout, wow. Boom! Put him out cold. Sterling versus Tuco Tokos. Firstly, Tuco needs to hop off the tacos. I'll tell you that for a fact. That man was royally out of shape compared to Sterling. The fact that this fight went into a decision, arguably a terrible performance from Dan Hooker 2.0. Yanez versus Marcos. I mean, fight of the night, in my opinion. Very close fight. What else do we get? Victor Petrino versus Dustin Jacoby. That's not arguably, that is the closest we're gonna get to a Masvidal Usman part 2. The way he hit him, he steps in, right hand, spins Petrino's head out cold. And Petrino's built like, that man was built like the Hulk. He is massive. And Jacoby just went, boom, puts him out. It wasn't like that, it was like, BAM! Anyway, Manel Cat, Bruno Silva. Manel Cat went Ultra Instinct. In my opinion, that is performance tonight. He also got booted in the balls about 3 times. I'm surprised he even has testicles after that from Manel Cat. Cub Swanson knocks out Billy Hugh. I'm not even going to try and say his last name. Billy Q was starting to take it there. I mean, people forget, man. Billy Q. But, like, he was starting to win the fight at the end of that. Cub Swanson knocks him out of the 1-2, which is insane. And then Buckley beats Covington, and it was a doctor stoppage. Terrible stoppage, in my opinion. Doesn't really matter. But that was probably the best way they could have concluded 2024. But that is going to be it for this video. Hopefully, listen, no one made us to this point. I'm going to be speaking to absolutely nobody. However, if you did enjoy, leave a like. See you in the next one. Goodbye.